Don't look too far into the woods. Notes from a haunted year on the edge of the trees. This morning I thought the woods were on fire, but the gray smoke drifting through the trees was only mist rising from the pond. That's how it looks when crisis becomes a way of life. The first answer is always the worst. I forget how timing works, how it's always taken care of me. The fields where the horses live at Lavender Hill are stitched between neighboring pastures and forest edges. A busy country road runs parallel to the length of the farm. When a car passes with a rumbling muffler, I flinch. We've inherited old fences reinforced with the down remnants of Hurricane Helene, and hedges of trifoliate oranges, their thorns thick and long. The oranges were once imported as natural livestock barriers. Their fruit smells sweet and beckoning, somewhere between a fig and a peach. But the fruit is bitter and used mostly for medicinal marmalades. I've lived in this region my whole life, yet this is the first time I've seen them. At night, small armadillos search the grass, another first for me. The horses are content in their fields, newly amazed by a life of freedom and choice, so they don't test the fences. My life was constricted to necessity the moment we learned that we were losing the old farm. Accounting, emails, workshops, and events all fell away as we leapt off the cliff of fundraising and scoured the land for a place to land. Each day became a lesson in trust. Would we find a pool of cool water at the end of the fall? Or would we shatter on the rocks below? The sign says, "Keep out." Sometimes when I sit too long in silence, I become acutely aware of the ringing in my ears. The cats perched on their tree by the window don't seem bothered by it. They take the world as it comes. I resolve to be more like them. I've wrung myself into a robotic state of clicking and scrolling, trying to catch up on the farm admin tasks that took a back seat while we were in shock, in transition, back in shock again, and slowly settling into the new farm. We have turnout shelters to build and fencing to replace. Christopher's free hours are reduced to the ever-changing list of high-priority needs that I scribble on the chalkboard that we inherited in the kitchen. My phone rings, but I don't answer. It rings again. Someone leaves a voicemail. I still don't look. Then a text lights up my watch. It says, "I own the property around you and hate that we haven't met yet. Please call at your earliest convenience. It's about the fences that your horses are in." I cannot call back fast enough. The back field where the geldings are learning to be feral isn't visible from the road. The length of it is lined with trees, and the far side borders a wide green cow pasture. Christopher and I walked those fence lines before turning all the horses out into their new home. There hasn't been any storms or changes that have made us question the old stretched wire hidden among the oaks. That part of the farm is remote, far away from daily traffic or human movement. It's the kind of place you have to seek out. The neighbor had been riding his golf cart through his field when he noticed a no trespassing sign on our side. He didn't recall it being there before, so he rolled closer for a look. The sign was attached with rusty nails, and just beside it, heavy oak boughs had fallen and taken out the fence line. The horses could have walked straight through. Instead, they stood watching him, their curiosity leading him farther along the boundary until he found a place to safely guide them back. And then he tracked down my number and called. Michelle and I gathered supplies and marched through the field to construct a temporary patch. We worked side by side, then split up to walk the rest of the line, scanning for weak spots. As we head back toward the barn, past the old cemetery, the horses graze nearby. They are calm and unconcerned. We wouldn't have known about the break for a long time if that neighbor hadn't happened to see the sign for the first time, if he hadn't rolled over to inspect it, if he hadn't gone looking for me. It's ironic that the brute boundary of a sign warning "keep out" becomes the very thing that brings us together. And it's those connections, the timing of them, that keep humbling me. We lost a farm and were somehow placed gently into another. The land itself here says, "I've got you." The neighbor and I talked about how he'd worried someone might buy this place and develop it. He told me he'd always hoped to preserve it, especially the section around the pond where our pastures meet the tree line. Later, Michelle and I talk about divine timing as we put the fencing tools back in the places where Tammy had so beautifully organized in the new feed room. Brandon spent his first week here parked on his folding throne, spooling and zip-tying miles of wire fencing we tore down in a hurry during the move. All these hands working together. It was a long, hard road to get here, but we've stumbled into a better way. The space between fear and rest. Sherry Barker and I met through our riding after Hurricane Helene. We were linked by the notorious Tamar Reno, and the web of these sisters has kept me going in dark times. They both know how to take care of their communities. But Sherry and I didn't meet in person until last week. She visited with her partner, Bill Rhodes, and I waited on the porch like an eager puppy, ready to finally wrap her up in a hug. Ever since I was certain we were moving to Lavender Hill Farm, I'd envisioned Sherry and I spending time in the field with the big mare, Moose. Sherry contributed so much to our move, including bags of groceries to stock the kitchen the day we moved my father's hospital bed into the new empty farmhouse. Spending time with her in person was transformative, but not in the way I had imagined. We explored the old parts of the house and then moved down to the barn. By the time I'd reached the fence line, Sherry had already found Moose and was watching her take a long drink from the trough. Moose and most of the horses in that field had been trapped on the trailer where Sheba, our black mare, spent her last hours in agony before help arrived during transport to the new farm. From the farmhouse windows, I'd watched for weeks as the herd grieved and processed, slowly learning to move again on shaky legs. Even now, most of them still hesitate to enter the barn hallway, with its rubber mats and metal walls that look too much like a trailer. I invited Sherry and Rhodes into the field with me and Christopher. We stood quietly as the herd circled around us. Mocha, a bay mare and the newest member of our herd, had been distant since the accident, but she went straight to Rhodes and nearly fell asleep against him. Julian, our chestnut troublemaker, followed her lead. I kept my eyes on Moose, who was acting strangely. She stretched her hind legs as if in pain. My thoughts spiraled. You cannot die yet, I thought. You cannot be sick. I can't bear the thought of keeping vigil with you. You have freedom and grass and everything you need. Stay here with me. Please don't go. I went into barn manager mode, filming her for the vet and drawing up a syringe of Banamine, the first thing any horse person reaches for when colic is suspected. But as I crossed the field again, I sensed something deeper than illness. Magic, another bay mare, was lying on her side, sound asleep. The rest of the herd stood around her, yawning and stretching. Moose stretched once more, and then she was fine. I don't know what happened in that field during Sherry's visit, but I know her presence and Rhodes allowed all of us to rest into our grief. Something in that quiet moment loosened the tight string of stoicism we'd been holding for too long. We didn't have to be anything more than what we were, exhausted, sad, and uncertain, unable to see far enough into the woods to know what comes next. Maybe we don't have to see into the forest. Maybe we're meant to dwell in it, to rest there long enough for magic to find us. I can't wait to welcome Sherry and Rhodes back to the farm again. Finding a better vantage. The woods at the edge of the pasture are shadowy. The space hums with all the things I can't see taking shape yet. I used to think stillness meant being stuck, but now I wonder if it's just the moment before we learn what to trust. For all the fear I carry in my daily life, I've always loved a good scary movie. It's reassuring for me to sit in the dark with a story that lets my fear play itself out to the end. Maybe it's because fear in that form has edges. I can watch it, measure it, and laugh at it when the lights come back on. Horses don't run endlessly from danger. They startle, take a few strides to safety, and then they stop. They turn back towards the thing that frightened them, and they stare at it from a new vantage point. They study it until they decide whether it's truly a threat or just a trick of the light. My curiosity about the macabre works the same way. According to a BBC piece I read recently, scary stories give us a kind of trial run for survival. They let our brains practice fear in manageable doses so that when real life jolts us, we already know how to act. That makes sense to me. Maybe I've spent my life running a short distance and then turning back to look, to make sense of what scared me before moving forward again. Maybe this farm, these horses, and even this strange haunted year have all been part of the same practice. Finding a better vantage, learning that the woods aren't always on fire, and remembering that sometimes the mist is just the pond breathing. So maybe the trick isn't to look too far into the woods, not because they're haunted, but because the woods will give me the information I need when I most need to know it. And it's time to trust what's just beyond my sight. I will watch the horses settle into rest and follow their lead as they guide me deeper into the forest. And our paths will be illuminated just enough to take the next step. If you've been following our story, you know that this farm wasn't just found. It was fought for, field by field, fence by fence. And what began as survival has become something larger, a living experiment in what it means to build a community around trust, timing, and shared care for the land. Every pasture we mend and every shelter we raise is part of that ongoing story. We're still catching our breath from the move and still finding our footing, and we're still relying on the hands that reach toward us. If this piece speaks to you, if you believe in keeping spaces like this alive for horses, for humans, and for healing, please consider supporting Bramblewood Stables at Lavender Hill through our GoFundMe. Save Bramblewood. Every contribution helps us care for the herd, rebuild what was lost, and ensure that this land remains a safe place where fear softens into rest and the mist over the pond keeps rising. Links to everything in this piece will be in the show notes, and I will see you next week. Love, Kim.